In July of 2002, my wife Sheri and I enjoyed a wonderful time at the Wisconsin Dells, the water park capital of the world, with my brother, his wife, and their kids. Despite living just a few hours' drive away, neither of us had ever visited, so it was quite a pleasant treat. On our Sunday evening return, we stopped at a Subway to grab a couple of sandwiches for the remaining 2-hour drive home. I was really hoping to get back before dark, but since it was already nearing 8, that seemed pretty unlikely. As we drove northbound on the seemingly endless highway towards home, Sheri and I enjoyed our subs while chatting about how much fun we had over the weekend. With the windows of our truck open, we relished the perfect midsummer air. The highways were still fairly busy, but were gradually quieting down as the night approached. 2 hours and one restroom stop later, we neared Rhinelander, the largest city close to where we lived. We stopped in town to fill up on gas before heading to our home, which was another 20 minutes or so out in the country. Sheri surprised me with a bag of Twizzlers, my favorite snack. As I opened the bag and tossed one in my mouth, I turned the key to start our final leg of the journey. As we drove down the empty, dark, one-lane road, I encountered a detour sign directing us to take a right onto a dirt road. It struck me as odd since I wasn't aware of any construction in the area, especially since we lived just a few miles away. Whatever, I turned onto the dirt road and proceeded down it. Even though I lived nearby, I wasn't very familiar with this road and didn't know where it really led. Trees began to line the sides, making the already dark night even darker. With our windows still down, the air was filled with the sounds of frogs and crickets as we followed the detour. Sheri was starting to get creeped out by our surroundings, and I had to admit it was pretty creepy. As we cruised down a long, narrow stretch, I slowed down when I spotted some orange reflective parking cones. It was strange to see them just sitting in the middle of the road with no other way to turn. Both Sheri and I felt extra creeped out, realizing this was the end of the supposed detour. Sheri suggested we should just leave, but after driving for about 15 minutes into this detour, my curiosity got the better of me. I opened my door and got out to inspect. As soon as I walked over to the cones, I heard some rustling in the foliage nearby. I glanced back at Sheri, who was urging me to return. Then, I heard whispers coming from the trees. I stepped a little closer to where the sounds were coming from and paused for a moment. "Don, get your ass back in here," Sheri yelled out. Just before turning to look at her, I saw 2 men emerging from the dark brush and rushing towards me, both holding baseball bats and shouting. My eyes widened and my heart dropped as I quickly turned to run back to the truck. Sprinting back to the truck, I noticed another man on Sheri's side, also holding a bat and trying to open her door. Luckily, she had locked it. I managed to get into the driver's seat, but just before I could shut the door, the 2 men grabbed it and tried to hit me with their bats. The situation was chaotic. Sheri was screaming as the men tried to break in, but I swiftly shifted the truck into reverse and hit the gas pedal hard. They made a final attempt to stop us by hitting the truck with their bats as I sped away. In front of us, still illuminated by the headlights as we were reversing, were the 3 figures running to catch up. They looked to be in their mid-20s and doped up on drugs or something. When I felt we had enough distance, I turned around. Shifting into drive, I sped off, leaving them behind in the dust cloud I created. I kept glancing back into the rearview mirror, trying to catch another glimpse of them, but all I saw was the pitch-black night and faint dust clouds that followed us. Sheri and I eventually made it back home, still on edge. We could never have expected that to happen, and the truly disturbing part is that it occurred only a couple miles from where we lived. Knowing there are violent people like that so close to home makes me extra cautious now.